Hi, I'm Peter Alexander, and thanks for tuning in. We're giving you a free orchestration lesson today to demonstrate professional orchestration, a practical handbook from piano to strings. So I'm going to show you an example from the book and how we approach it, and then I'm going to go through and pull an example from the complementing workbook, which is available for separate purchase, and to show you how that works. So what we have here with from piano to strings and the subsequent volumes that follow it for woodwinds and full orchestra is what I call applied orchestration. In other words, here's a piece of music, now you score it. You're going to have to do something with it. And so the whole purpose of this book is to help you build these skills. So let's go to the second slide. What you're going to see here is that we have 13 categories of keyboard performance techniques are covered in this series. And within these 13 categories of keyboard performance techniques are 30 individual techniques for composition, for scoring, and for MIDI mockups application. Now, a point I want to make to you about the composition is that maybe some of the things in here you've never learned before in terms of these techniques for keyboard writing. Well, if you didn't know them before, now you're going to get a double shot because you're going to learn what they are. And so you'll be able to understand how to take these techniques and apply them not only for the orchestra, but you can also learn how to apply them for more effective keyboard techniques as well. We have a teaching goal here for the entire professional orchestration series, and that is to learn how to write for live players, and then how do you make sample libraries sound live. So, professional orchestration, a practical handbook from piano to strings, is going to push you in both directions. There will be a compositional solution for live players, and then there's going to be that solution that you do a MIDI mockup and record. Now with this book, what we're doing is this is called transcribing. When you take a piano work and you translate it to orchestra, the actual term is called transcription. And so what you're learning to do here is how do you take these piano parts and make them sound naturally written and properly spaced for the strings. And the reason for that is because a lot of times, most of the writers who come out of school now, for the most part, are first keyboard players and secondly guitarists. And so there's a tendency for a keyboardist to write a keyboard part and then send it over to the orchestra. And then when it doesn't sound the way he wants it to sound, they get a little distressed about it, and they're getting distressed because they're trying to make the piano do what only an orchestra can do. And so you don't want to do that. You want to understand these spacing issues for the string section, and this is a place where you're going to learn how to do that. Now, let's go to the next slide, and we'll get a look at one of the examples within the book. Okay, this is example S8. It's Mozart Sonata number 3. And let's just look at the bottom portion. You'll see it's marked piano. So in the book, all the book examples follow this, well, most of the book examples follow this layout method where the piano part is at the bottom of the staves, and then you have the string part above it. Now, if you have my book, How Ravel Orchestrated Mother Goose Suite, we followed that same exact pattern there. So the piano part is at the bottom of the score, and then you have the orchestration above that. Now, this particular example, S8, falls in the category of broken chords. This is a very simple piece, so but we're going to see what's really involved. Don't think that because something's simple doesn't mean there wasn't a lot of thinking behind it. There is a lot of thinking, and we're going to see how that applies. So the first thing you notice is we have a broken chord that's being played in the left hand. Then I have a note down there that says that there is an implied bass line. So what generally happens in a situation like this is the first pitch of that broken chord, if it's one chord per measure, that's going to be the bass line, or what we would call the implied bass line. And then we have the melody immediately above that. All right, so let's go to the next slide. So what do we want to do? How do we approach this? Well, the first thing to do is before you begin scoring it, and this is really important, let me give you a don't here. Don't jump in and start scoring it until you listen to the piano part and check the tempo first. That's very important because you can play this thing at your skill level and maybe you can't quite play it up to tempo and you'll pick the wrong articulations, especially if you're doing a MIDI mockup. Now, if you're putting it with live players, the concert master will catch that, but you want to catch it before somebody else catches it because it's going to affect how you score the piece. So here the tempo is 152 beats per minute. Now, how fast is 152? Well, let me give you a quick way of gauging where tempos are without pulling out a metronome. A standard Sousa march is at 120 beats per minute. Well, this is at 152, so it's about 20% faster. And so, just pick up the tempo a little bit by snapping your fingers, and that'll give you an idea of where this is. This is a very brisk piece of music. Let's go to the next slide. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play you this particular example. So stand by for the audio. All right, now that we've heard what this sounds like, you hear how brisk this is, let's go to the next slide and let's kind of take apart and see how Dr. Wagner orchestrated this particular excerpt. Okay, the orchestration notes are in blue. Let's look first at the melody. Now, the melody has been assigned simply enough to the first violins. The inner line, that broken chord left hand that you see down there at the bottom of the piano, that's been assigned as an inner line. And notice that the bass note has been removed from it. So you're just getting a two-pitch inner line. And then that's been assigned to the violas. The bass line was not assigned to the basses. The basses are left out. The bass line is being assigned to the cellos. Now let's go back up and look under the melody, and you're going to see the word filler. Well, what that means is that Dr. Wagner created an inner harmony part. So instead of just having the melody in unison, he created a second part where it's primarily in thirds and sixths, sometimes a fourth in there, it looks like, in a couple places. So you can see how he approaches. Not a very difficult orchestration from this perspective. However, this represents a solution. It is not the solution. There are many solutions. This is just one of those possible. I want to really emphasize that with you because sometimes when you go through these exercises, you're trying to come up with the solution, something that nobody else would have come up with. And to a certain extent, that's admirable. But what you want to know is, what are the solutions possible? And when you go through this book, one of the things that helped me as I went through it on my own a number of years ago was that I saw that there were many, many different solutions. I wasn't bound. And once I saw that how many solutions I had available to me, that took a lot of pressure off because I didn't have to worry about coming up with the perfect solution. What I had to be concerned about was coming up with the one that was most effective for the situation in which I was writing.